Most night shifts began with exactly the same mind-numbing routine. You microwave a snack you barely want, scroll through your phone to fight off sleep, and wipe down the exact same laminate counter for the third time. This diagram shows how daytime society naturally deters predatory behavior. In a crowded room, dozens of people create overlapping lines of sight. Sociologists refer to this natural, passive surveillance as herd immunity. Everyone is watching everyone else, making the space inherently secure. But at 2 a.m., that herd vanishes. The overlapping lines of sight disappear, leaving a sudden psychological and physical vacuum. In this void, the isolated worker remains anchored to a cash register, now a captive audience for anyone who decides to push through the front door. The danger of working the graveyard shift does not stem from the building itself. The threat is the enforced total isolation that strips away every layer of societal protection. To understand the geographic scale of overnight businesses, you have to look at the massive footprints of rural motels and gas stations. Brightly lit lobbies and fuel islands act as lonely beacons, swallowed by acres of unmonitored asphalt and pitch-black fog. Inside those massive empty spaces, predators begin testing the waters with passive observation. Take the hotel clerk who checked in a late-night guest. Instead of going up to room 214, the man returned to the darkened lounge. He didn't read or check his phone. He sat perfectly still for half an hour, staring at a blank television screen while keeping the lone clerk directly in his peripheral vision. A 22-year-old gas station attendant experienced the same tactic. Unmarked, plateless cars began arriving in the dead of night, deliberately parking in specific architectural blind spots positioned just outside the register's line of sight. The logic behind these actions is calculated. The antagonists avoid immediate attacks, instead surveying the environment to confirm no one else is coming and that the worker is entirely alone. The psychological terror sets in once the worker realizes their quiet shift has dissolved into a period of active observation. They are no longer working in a shop, but living inside a surveillance perimeter. The trap tightens due to the nature of shift work. Employees like Meredith, a night shift gas station attendant, are required by their employers to adhere to rigid, unchanging schedules, anchoring them to specific geographic positions for 8 hours straight. A local man named Paul exploited Meredith's immobility. He studied her specific habits with precision, noting the exact hour she habitually checked the backroom locks. He even memorized her handwriting on the break room whiteboard, correctly pointing out her tendency to dot the letter I with small, specific slashes. His intrusions escalated until he provided physical proof of his surveillance. He left a close-up Polaroid on the store counter. The photo showed Meredith performing an outdoor chore in the dark, with the distinct handwriting slashes heavily circled in red ink. This timeline graphic illustrates the systemic flaw at the core of this escalation. A shift job forces the worker into a highly predictable, repeating loop. They are tethered to a fixed location and a strict timetable, while an external predator operates erratically, slowly closing the distance with every revolution of the clock. The requirements of the job become the predator's most effective weapon. The employee's mandatory routine provides an easily readable roadmap for stalking. That roadmap leads straight to the final physical boundary. In Daniel's rural motel, the heavy wooden reception desk served as a universally understood barrier. It was the designated dividing line between the authority of the employee and the access of the stranger. During a quiet fall shift, the service bell on that desk rang loudly. Daniel walked out to find a completely empty lobby. No cars outside, no footprints, zero movement. 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. The room remained perfectly silent and vacant. Determined to catch whoever was playing a joke, Daniel dimmed the lights and sat silently in a chair directly behind the counter. 20 minutes passed. Then, a pale hand reached up from the shadows directly beneath the desk, right beside his legs, and pressed the bell. The intruder had slipped past the structural protection of the front desk and crouched silently inside the worker's private space, effectively claiming the environment. When an intruder breaches the reception counter, the physical barrier of the job fails. The worker is left geographically trapped in a small space with their stalker. These encounters usually resolve with police sirens, restraining orders, and perpetrators fleeing into the night. But these official resolutions only occur after the terrifying climax has already concluded. Standard security protocols rely on cameras, locked doors, and 911 calls. These systems are reactive. They log the details of an incident, but they offer no immediate physical intervention when an isolated worker is being targeted. The stalkers eventually leave, but the psychological trauma lingers. Long after transferring to a new city, Meredith still panics at trailing headlights in her rearview mirror. Even years later, Daniel cannot look at a reception desk without anticipating a hand reaching up from the shadows. The physical threat is removed, but the hyper-awareness remains. These victims continue to perceive their safety through the lens of that vulnerability long after the night shift ends. The next time you walk into a brightly lit 24-hour business in the dead of night, you are looking at a glass box. Inside, a person is holding the line, standing alone in the dark.